Hello. Now the first thing I want to do today is to explain why I'm making another philosophy video. Right now I'm as high as a kite. I've just smoked an Italian cigar, a similar type to Clint Eastwood in Fistful of Dollars, etc. For a few dollars more, Good, the Bad and the Ugly. It's made of Kentucky tobacco, aged and fermented, and it's quite incredible. They're called Il Batero if you're interested, and they are rather weird because they're smaller at one end and bigger at the other end, and I use a cigar holder, so I smoke it right down to the nub, in between sips of Jim Beam Bourbon Kentucky whiskey, white label. And I said in an earlier video, Satanism, solipsism and nihilism, that pleasures are perishing particulars. That's what the great metaphysician F.H. Bradley said. You can't live for pleasure because pleasures just pass away, and eventually you run out of things to enjoy. You get bored. You've got the memory of the pleasure, but that's not enough. But the thing about getting high, and it could also apply to cannabis, although I don't smoke cannabis, or stronger drugs, is that LSD is another example. If you get an insight during the experience of being high, that is something that you can hold on to for the rest of your life. And of course there are some great songs that have been composed as a result of those experiences. The Beatles is an obvious example during the psychedelic years. Well, I am high, but I believe that the things I'm going to say are absolutely valid. And the first thing I'm going to say is that I have produced an important body of philosophical work. The fact that it's not recognized by the academic community means nothing to me. If you really want to understand me, then you need to read the three important books in order: The Metaphysics of Meaning, Naive Metaphysics, and the Philosophizer Trilogy. I'm going to be mainly talking about the Philosophizer Trilogy. The thing I realized after completing the trilogy, that was Philosophizer, Philosophizer's Bible, and The Idiotic Conundrum, to give the shorter name, is that the question is the answer. I said in an earlier video that I'm living in the dark, and that's a very negative way to look at the insight that I've gained. You have to learn to see the dark, to accept it, and to embrace it. What is the question? I've repeated it so many times. The fact that there's anything at all is something that science can't explain and religion can't explain, because they just give beliefs or theories. String theory is just a theory. It's a hypothetical account of how the universe might have existed, or what is the ultimate underlying fabric of the universe. But it doesn't answer the question. And religion is the same. The fact that I'm here at all is an absolute mystery. Consciousness is a mystery. As I said in an earlier video, the ideology of materialism. Philosophers are busy giving an account of what consciousness does, of what an entity which possesses consciousness can do, but they don't understand what consciousness is. And I made a rather crude jibe at a contemporary philosopher, Galen Strawson, in the third book of the trilogy. Really a reaction to something that he said, that even a 6-year-old child knows what consciousness is. That is so outrageously absurd, because of course no one knows what consciousness is. We think we do, or philosophers think they do. They assume that they do, and then they go on to give theories, materialism, dualism, etc. But they don't know either. They don't know, they can't explain why there's anything at all. And of course, it's a question of explanation. As I said, explanation is just hypothetical. So how do you embrace the dark? Well, I've done numerous things in my life. I worked in the world of photography for a while. I was a stringer at a press agency off Fleet Street, Barrett's Photo Press. I worked for an advertising photographer. Then I found philosophy. I got my 3 degrees, my BA, etc., my doctorate. And those, of course, have made a massive difference to my life. But the thing that I've been doing lately, if you've been looking at my videos, is songwriting. And the thing about songwriting is that there are techniques that you can learn. And I wrote about this in the first chapter of Philosophizer. The essence of a song is the idea, and you make a case. But of course there are other elements too. One that I learned by looking at a very interesting YouTube video was that a good song has what they call a signature hook. And I discovered this quite, for myself without realizing what it was. Signature hook is very important, and there's various other elements as well. But the really important thing about it is you write about something, you sing about something that means something to you, which is why there are so many love songs. I'm not at the moment presently motivated to write love songs. I might have been at a previous time. But of course the thing that means most to me is the question. And that's what I write about. That's what I sing about. And of course, singing about something that means something to you isn't the answer either. But it's something that you can do. What I really realized, the fundamental point, is that it isn't a question of answering the question, because you're never going to do that. The only alternative, the only possible alternative, the only possible logical alternative is to find a way to orient yourself towards the question, because that is the ultimate task of philosophy, is to find a way to orient yourself in relation to reality, to find a way to be. And I'm not going to pretend to be one of those people who know how to be and can teach everyone else and be a Maharishi, Mahesh Yogi or whatever and have followers and all that shit. Because I'm not interested in followers. Of course I want to communicate, and I hope that at least some of my videos have communicated something to you. That's a basic human need. And I'm very selfishly satisfying that need by making this video. But it's also the case that in making these videos I have discovered things that I would never have discovered if I'd just been sitting in my armchair or at my desk thinking. You can think as hard as you like, but it's only when you put yourself on the spot, when you sit in front of a camera without a script, that you really discover the things that are important. So I could have, this morning I could have got one of my guitars out and, started fooling around looking for a signature hook or whatever, looking for new chords, etc. But the impulse came to make a video, and this is what I'm doing. I will state, and this is, of course this is going to sound like boasting, but it isn't really. I do believe that the Philosophizer Trilogy is the most important philosophy book written in the present century. I believe that, even if no one else does. If you read it, you will get numerous different impressions. One is that it's just a load of associated various blog posts, self-indulgent, a lot of negative things that you could say about it. But it is the only philosophy book that I've come across, that I know about, that actually faces up to the question. It doesn't have the answer. And if you pursue the line that I've been taking, you will have to find the answer, well, the accommodation, the orientation for yourself. You will have to be gripped by the question in order to do that. If you don't see the question, no amount of study will help you. And study is important and worthwhile. I mean, of all the philosophers that I can think of, Immanuel Kant is probably the closest, because he saw that experience is finite, and no amount of human experience or theorizing on the basis of experience can get you to ultimate reality. Apologies for the join. I ran out of hard drive space. The program that I use, called Quickie, produces these massive files, and the one that I just produced was over 17 gigabytes. So yeah, I was talking about Immanuel Kant. No amount of experience will get you to ultimate reality, and he talked about the need to have faith. You have to set bounds to reason in order to make room for faith. Of course, faith is not the answer. As I said, faith is just belief. Theories, beliefs, faith, they're all the same thing. They're not an answer to the question. They're a kind of fiction that may satisfy us. And if you're satisfied, well, that's fine. But that means that you haven't faced up to the question, faced up to our ignorance, faced up to the fact that we are living in the dark. You have to embrace the dark, accept it, find a way to orient yourself towards it. Of course, there are so many other things to talk about, and I talk about them in my book. The various ways in which you approach the question, react to it, live with it. And there are all sorts of things human beings can do in this world. You don't have to even think about the question. You can just pursue whatever line that you want to pursue. So this is for people who are not satisfied with that. As I said, I've done lots of things. I've expressed myself in various ways. And I do love music, I do love photography. I appreciate the works of great musicians, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, all the rest, great photographers, Lee Friedlander, Robert Adams, and so on. But art isn't the answer either. Art is just another thing that you can do. And again, like philosophy, it's very important. It creates or helps create a meaningful life. And as I said, human beings like to express themselves. But expressing yourself isn't the answer either. Art isn't the answer either. It's just something you can do. It's part of the whole package. I mean, if someone asks me now, says, I'm interested in philosophy, what should I do? By all means, do a degree in philosophy. Learn about the great philosophers. Those who are ignorant of the history of philosophy are doomed to repeat it. Any ideas that you come up with out of your own head are almost bound to have been thought by someone else. Go back to the pre-Socratics, start with them. Go right through the history of Western philosophy, and by all means, Eastern philosophy as well. Because their thoughts can be a starting point. Even if none of what the philosophers have said, any philosophers in the history of the human race, is sufficient, it's a starting point. And you will also learn how to think, how to use your mind, how to reason. And also the limits of reason, the limits of logic. You have to do this for yourself. As I said, I made this video because I was high, and I'm still a little bit high. I'm going to be making more music videos because I've discovered it's something that's rather enjoyable, and it's something I can do, something anyone can do. As I say, you learn the techniques, sing about something that means something to you, and I will probably do more photography as well. But I really, really, really would like to hear from people who have read my book, or my books. I always appreciate the comments. I nearly always reply to comments. I mean, if there's anything that remotely resembling a question, I will answer it. I'm still answering questions on Ask a Philosopher. I think the last question I answered was, are we just sacks of meat? And of course this is all about consciousness and the notion that there's a difference between a human being and a zombie, etc., etc. And I actually composed a song about zombies, which I haven't found a melody for yet. Come up with all sorts of ideas, but nothing's good enough, you know. I'm just carrying on. I will make more philosophy videos as well when I get a new idea. I always make a video when I have a new idea, when I have something to say. Today was really about, I know, giving advice. You don't have to get high in order to philosophize. It can help. The most important thing is that you see the need. You feel the need in yourself. You feel gripped by the question. Because that is the ultimate starting point. Read and read and read, and look at watch YouTube videos or whatever it takes. And once you're gripped, then you can really go on to do some serious work in philosophy. If you've got the energy for it. If you can tear yourself away from all the other distractions of human life. None of those distractions are important. They're things that keep us busy for a while. That's all. Anyway, that's just about all I have to say today, which I guess wasn't that much. But look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.